Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome into my craft room for another Friday crafting session. It's the 28th of April. I don't know where April has gone. It seems to have absolutely flown past. I'm sure it's something to do with the fact that everything happening in nature is telling me that spring is here. I was going to say the weather has improved. Actually, the weather has not improved. We have had such a long winter here. I know people in North America are finding the winter has been very long this year as well. We haven't had the extreme snowfall that a lot of people have had, but we have had dull weather, really cold weather, unseasonably late frosts, certainly for down here on the south coast. And until about half an hour ago, I was wearing a thermal top and a fleece inside, so it's really not been very warm. They promised us 18 degrees outside this afternoon. I think it has definitely warmed up because the sun is trying to come out, but it's not great. It's not really very nice outside. All right, so I'm just going to have a look and see if it looks as if I am live okay. At the moment, I think I'm probably talking to myself. I don't think there is anybody else watching right now, but hopefully somebody will join us and will be able to tell us whether you can see and hear me okay. Okay, actually I should be able to tell if you can hear me by... Yes, so I'll just turn up the volume on my iPad and I can hear myself. So hopefully the volume is all right. We had issues last week with the sound coming and going. I have once again tested my equipment. It's not my microphone. I know some people think that it's when I move my head. It's not, because I've tested everything, and it's not supposed to be a directional microphone, and it isn't. So it's probably Facebook, and Facebook did another update this morning. At least I got another update this morning. So fingers crossed it will be okay. But it might not. So if the sound is coming and going, I am sincerely sorry. There is nothing at all I can do my end about it, and it's pretty frustrating. But hopefully we will get by, and you will be patient with me. All right. So as always, I've got a few reminders for you. Then I'm going to put the camera down, and I'm going to show you the Sweet Sampler, which is a sneak peek from the new catalogue, and you haven't got very long to order it either. And there will be a few sneak peeks for colour as well as I work on a technique, which is what I'm going to show you today. And Pam, that's great. Thank you so much. Pam is here. You're very welcome. And she's saying the sound is good. So let's hope that that continues. Thanks so much, Pam. Okay. Let me just... Finding comments on my iPad is always a bit of a treasure hunt, really. It says swipe left, but sometimes you actually have to swipe up. So who knows? All right, so class reminders first of all. If you would like to do my June card class, which is happening on June the 1st, you have until next Friday, the 5th of May, to book your place. And if you'd like to do that same class, but by post and with videos to show you what to do, then same closing date applies. And if you'd like any information on that, just send me an email to handmadeathome@hotmail.co.uk and I can get the information out to you. My June Fancy Folds class is happening on the 12th of June. Oh, I didn't say, sorry, the card class is happening on the 1st of June. And on the 12th is my Fancy Fold cards class. If you would like to do that, you've got a bit longer to book. You've got until the 19th of May. But if you'd like more information, let me know. New catalogues. The catalogue launches on Tuesday, which is very exciting. That means that the last chance list, which is all the things which are not in the new catalogue, ends on Monday evening. All those bargains end on Monday evening. So if you've had your eye on anything, do please get online and order it before the end of Monday. Quite a lot has sold out now, but there are still a lot of bargains to be had. The catalogue then starts on Tuesday morning. Some of you have had your catalogues already. In previous years, I've posted most of them out, but it is just so expensive to post catalogues now that I made the offer that you can come and pick them up if you live near me. You can collect, otherwise I will give them to you at your classes. I will have quite a few people at my launch on the 12th of May where I will hand them out, and anybody that I'm not going to see in those ways, I will post them out to you. So if you're not expecting to see me, but you're expecting a catalogue from me, then you will get one in the post. And they will go out, it's probably going to be next week now. Sweet sampler I'm going to show you in a minute, so that's exciting. In terms of live Facebook Lives next week, I'm actually doing 2 next week. I'm doing one on Tuesday and one on Friday, so I'm throwing in an extra one on catalogue launch day. They will both be at 2 o'clock. The Tuesday one may last a little bit more than an hour. I'm going to show you the new colours and talk to you a little bit about which colours they are similar to, and I'm also going to show you my favourite things in the catalogue, and I'll show you a few samples as well. And then on Friday I'm going to be showing you a bundle called Timeless Arrangements, which I was able to order early. It's really beautiful. It's got some very clever dies in it, so I will be showing you that on Friday. So that's next week's lives. As always, I'll upload them to YouTube, so you'll be able to watch them there. I always put the links to those in my newsletter. If you're not on my newsletter mailing list and you'd like to be, let me know. And you will always find them on my Facebook page as well, so you can go back and watch them afterwards there as well. So I think that's all the reminders and information to give you this week. So I'm going to cover over the camera, reaching for my washi tape. I'm going to turn you down to my desk, and I'm going to show you the new sweet sampler, which is all new products. And then we will get on and I'll show you this technique. So let me cover you over. Let's find the reverse camera button, which is there. And let's turn everything down. I'm sure I will need to do a little bit of tweaking once I can see what you can see. I will need to sort out the cables as always. Oh, that's not too bad, is it actually? My desk is particularly messy, but it's not too bad other than that. Have I moved that the right way? No, as always it needs to go the other way. There we are. So let me just coil up this lead, which doesn't want to go the way I was coiling it, and get it off the table. Hopefully out of the way. It has given me enough slack that I'm actually able to move a little bit. Alright, so in the new catalogue, I cannot show you the inside of the catalogue. I'm not allowed to until catalogue launches, but there is a really beautiful suite called Fresh as a Daisy. I'll show you the stamps and the dies first, and then I'll show you the sweet sampler. So this stamp set is Cheerful Daisies. We have some of these daisies in our garden. We've got the white ones with the bright yellow centres, but actually these look great stamped in all kinds of different colours. It's a 2-step stamping set if you wish to use it that way. So you can stamp an outline in one colour, and then you can add a solid image on top of it in another colour. And so the stamps are photopolymer to make it easy to line them up that way. So you've got a big daisy, a small daisy, and a kind of a seen sideways daisy. And you've got centres which will fit in those as well, so you can bring in a third colour there if you wish. Then there's a little group of daisies here. That's great as a background or an infill. We've got a stem and a leaf, and then some words. You made my day. Oops a daisy, so sorry. Wishing you the brightest birthday, and your friendship means everything. And actually I have taken the scissors to this Oops a daisy one because I thought it was going to be more useful as 2 separate stamps. Have I got anything dark I can put this on? So I've cut out the I'm so sorry, or so sorry I should say. It's not I'm so sorry, it's so sorry. So I now have 2 pieces of stamp that I can use separately, and if I do want to use them as one, I will just push the 2 back together like that, pick them up on my block, and because I haven't trimmed them neatly, I've got a very kind of jagged cut, they will actually fit back together like a couple of jigsaw pieces. And if I have a words stamp like that, where I think, well, I like part of that, but I'm going to end up constantly masking off those words, if I possibly can, I cut them apart. Obviously you can use washi tape or other masking techniques. You can use our masking paper. but sometimes it's nice not to have to fiddle around with that if you know that you're going to want to use only part of it almost all the time. So that's the Cheerful Daisies set. It's available separately, but you are of course going to want to bundle it up with the dies, which are really lovely. So you have dies which cut out your flowers, the stem, the leaf, and then there is this die which is lovely. This is a sort of a group of daisies with a leaf attached. And then you also have what I'm kind of calling daisy details, which are these, which cut and then also emboss details on pieces which you can then fit onto this die. So you can build up a 2-layer die cut using these. They're lovely, really beautiful. You'll be seeing me using those quite a lot. And then there is also a label. There is a kind of a feathery foliage leaf, which is really nice. And there's also a couple of dies which cut out the flower centres. So those are the Cheerful Daisies dies. I'm going to put them back in here so I don't lose any of them. And then I'll show you the sampler, which is everything else that coordinates with these. So you can order these from Tuesday. And then this sampler is going to be available to order only until Friday of next week. So I'm not giving you much time on this. So this is a quarter of a pack of paper, 6 sheets of coordinating card, 3 meters of ribbon, which I'll show you in a sec, half a pack of the coordinating gems, and then I always give you an idea sheet, which is just some photographs of projects that I've made, just so you've got a starting point. And actually, I move something out of the way. There we are. So let me show you the paper first, which is gorgeous. So the paper has got illustrations on one side and then a colour wash on the other, and lots of new colours. So this is daisies on the front, and then we've got a copper clay wash on the back. Then this is an all-over daisy. And then we've got blues and greens on the back. I'll read you the colours in a minute off the paper packet to make sure I don't miss any, because there's a lot of colours in this. Then we've got this kind of yellow and green one, and this lovely grey background. This is Pebbled Path on the back. I love this one. This has got Moody Mauve in it, Wild Wheat, Copper Clay, so 3 new colours there. And then it's got Wild Wheat on the back. And we've got white and yellow daisies and some greens with this beautiful blue on the back. And then you'll get half a sheet of one of these. Now let me just grab a full sheet to show you. Attach my microphone again so you can hopefully hear me. So I'll show you the full sheet, and you will get either a half like this or the other half of the sheet. So the full sheet has pieces like this in it. So obviously this one comes here. So you'll get one like this, or you'll get one like that. They're all lovely. And then on the back we've got a colour wash of Moody Mauve. So half a pack of the paper, and I'm just going to slide this one back in there. You can see I've been busy already. I've got lots of bits in here. The colours in the paper are Azure Afternoon, which is a lovely new blue, Boho Blue, which is another blue, Bubble Bath, which is pale pink, Cajun Craze, which we've had already. You'll know that that's a kind of a burnt orange, Copper Clay, which is new, Crushed Curry, Early Espresso, Garden Green, Lemon Lolly, which is new, that's a pale yellow, Moody Mauve, which I've shown you already, Pebbled Path, which is the grey, Pretty Peacock, which is a returning dark teal colour, and Wild Wheat, which is this kind of ochre colour. And then the cards that I'm giving you in your pack, you'll get one each of Moody Mauve, Pretty Peacock, Copper Clay, Wild Wheat, Pebbled Path and Boho Blue. So these will coordinate beautifully with those papers. You also get 1 metre each of this new ribbon. This is a lovely ribbon. It's got a texture to it. It ties really nicely. Let me tie a bow and show you. There we go. Ties really nicely. And you'll get 1 metre of that in Boho Blue, 1 metre in Moody Mauve, and 1 metre in Pebbled Path. And because it's a textured ribbon rather than a satin or something like that, actually this is great for masculine cards. There's not many ribbons that you can use, or trims I suppose, that you can use on masculine cards without them looking a little bit girly, but that one works really well. And then half a pack of the adhesive backed solid gems. So these are Lemon Lolly, Boho Blue and Copper Clay. You've got large and small ones. Oh, and medium, sorry, 3 sizes, large, medium and small. So they will coordinate with the papers and with the card. So 1/4 pack of paper, 6 sheets of A4, 3 meters of ribbon, half a pack of gems and an ideas sheet. So if you can collect that from me, if you're local, that'll cost you £12. If you'd like me to post it to you, that's absolutely not a problem, and I just have to charge you for the postage and the board-backed envelope, which adds £2.50. So postage to you is £14.50. Just email me if you would like one of those, and I need to know by next Friday, May the 5th. Okay, so Pam is saying the sound is coming and going again, but she can hear me even if it's quiet. So that's great. Thank you, Pam. I'd rather hoped that everything would be sorted out with that Facebook update, but obviously that was optimistic. What a shame. All right, so that's a sneak peek of some of the new colours and that new suite, which is just beautiful. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a technique. I've learnt this as the Faux Patina technique. It probably has other names as well. But if you think about a piece of metal that has been maybe left out and has got weathered or is old, even has got wet, things like that, then the texture and the colour of the metal changes in a very kind of organic way. So this is a way of simulating that look. I'm going to do a piece now, talk you through exactly what I'm doing, using colours which are vaguely reminiscent of verdigris, so you know those kind of greenish turquoise colours that you get on copper. And then I'll show you another project that I finished using completely different colours, so hopefully that will give you a little bit of an idea as to how versatile this is. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some card. I like to work on white because then the colours come out true, but you can certainly use a pale colour. If you're working with browns, you could use a pale brown like crumb cake. If you're going to work with blues, you could use something very pale like a balmy blue or even pool party. So experiment and you'll get different results every time. You need an embossing folder and then obviously your machine to run that through. You're going to need some coloured inks. You want a pale shade first of all, which will become your base layer, and then you need 2, 3 or 4 other colours depending on the look that you're going for. So I'm using crumb cake for my base layer, and then because I'm going for a kind of a copper verdigris look, I've got Asia Afternoon, that's a new colour, beautiful blue, Lost Lagoon, which is another new colour, and Pretty Peacock, which is also new. We've had these in the past as in colours, so they may look familiar to you, but we've got them back permanently now. And then Old Olive, definitely a green. So those are the colours of ink I'm using. I've also got a Versamark ink pad because I'm going to be doing some heat embossing, and some copper embossing powder, which I always put into a lidded box because it's much easier to tip the excess back rather than have to use a piece of paper and then funnel it back into those tiny little pots that it comes in. Because I'm going to be heat embossing, I've got a heat tool. I've also got a heat-proof mat if I find I need to put anything down on my desk. And I have an embossing buddy. This isn't essential, but it means that you don't have to wait so long for your ink to dry. This is just a little bag. It's just filled with talc, powdered chalk. They're easy enough to find. We have a really nice pack of embossing accessories, which includes a tray to catch your embossing powder, some silicone heat-proof tweezers, an embossing buddy, and something else that escapes me at the moment. And that was in the seasonal catalogue, and that's going on into the main new catalogue, so you can get an embossing buddy in that. Okay, so the first stage is to get a base layer of ink on my card. So I've got my embossing folder here. This is one of the basics embossing folders from the online pack of 3. There's a sort of a flowery star on there. There's a crosshatch design, which I really love. And then there's this one, which is circles. So I'm going to take my palest colour of ink, my crumb cake in this case, and I'm going to rub it all over the inside of the embossing folder. And depending on whether you want this embossed or debossed, I want mine embossed, I want the pattern raised. That means I'm going to put it on the inside of the front. And I always think of the front as the side which has got the Stampin' Up logo on it. So I'm going to open my embossing folder, and I'm just going to rub and pat my ink pad over the inside of it to try to get an even coverage of ink. Now, because this is a water-based ink, this will just wash straight off under the tap when I've finished. It's absolutely not a problem. And I'm aiming to get it on the background, if you like, and not into those little depressions. There are 1 or 2 where it's gone in, where it's a soft foam ink pad, it will push into those in places, but that's fine. And then I'm going to pop my card in and run it through my embossing machine. Now, I can't get that easily under the camera, so I'm actually going to get up and do that on my other table and then come back. But you will see it as it comes out of the machine. So I've got this inky side down. There's a straight line on there which will allow me to lay my card in straight, and I am going to take advantage of that line because these dots are laid out in neat rows, and I don't want them to end up on here slightly skew-if because that will annoy me. So I'm going to lay down the lower edge of my card level with that line, and then just carefully hold it down with my finger and then let it go, and that will be as straight as I can reasonably get it. And shut that down and run it through my embossing machine, and I'll be back in about 30 seconds. There we go. Did anybody time me? I'm not sure I was even as long as 30 seconds. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the card. So that I will wash at the end of this session, and it won't come to any harm at all. Oops. I just reached too far to put that out of the way. Let me just hook up my lead again. There we are. And then I'll show you this card that I've literally just taken out of the folder. Will go slightly paler as it dries. So you can see that I've got my embossed card. The ink has covered the background, and my dots are raised and white. Now it's a little bit variable here because there was a variable coating of ink on the folder, but that's absolutely fine. We're going to do a lot with this yet, and any little variations are going to all come out in the wash. So now I'm going to apply ink in the other colours. You can use a sponge dauber, or a blending brush. I love the blending brushes, and I've actually got the small ones here because I can do much smaller areas more easily with this. I'm going to start off with my lighter colour. I mean, there's not an awful lot of difference between these. Pretty Peacock's probably the darkest. I think I'll start with Lost Lagoon. And I'm aiming to get patches of colour. I don't want this all over everywhere. So I've just picked up some ink. I always blend it into the bristles of my brush on a clear block. And then I'm going to move my hand before it makes contact with the paper. And then just come on here. So I'm going to get some of that Lost Lagoon ink on some white dots. I'm going to get some of it onto the crumb cake that's already on there. And I'm just going to randomly lay down some patches of colour. You can see if I apply more ink, it's kind of bluer, and less ink, it's greener. It's an interesting colour, this one. I can't decide if it's a blue or a green. I think actually it's a bit of a chameleon. And it depends what you put it with as to how blue or green it looks. When we had this originally, I thought it was okay, but I wasn't wild about it. But now we've got the colour back, I find I absolutely love it. So I don't know what's been going on there. But yeah, really lovely. So this is Asia Afternoon. I'm going to actually change brushes because I keep one for greens and one for blues. I've got a clean block. And now I'm going to come in with this second brushed on colour. I'm going to overlap some of that Lost Lagoon and then do some of it where there isn't any other colour except for the crumb cake. So we're getting little pops of colour, and we're getting lots of blending. And I will try to leave some tiny areas white, not very much, but just a little bit white as well, just for some real contrast. Lift that up and show you where I am so far. So we've got Asia Afternoon, we've got Lost Lagoon, we've got them two overlapped there, which actually makes a really lovely colour. And I can come back with any of these colours again. So this is Old Olive. I've turned my block over so this is a clean surface. Looks almost like a lime green in comparison to those blues. It's interesting how different colours look when you put them next to other colours. So I'm not really planning this other than to kind of spread out my areas of colour a little bit. If you think about a piece of copper that's got that kind of greenish hue to it, it will be in a very unplanned way. It's not going to sort of neatly go across it in lines or anything like that. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. So then I'm going to come in with my last colour, which is Pretty Peacock, and then I'll have a look at it and see if I want to do anything else. Of course, is this a blue or is it a green? I'm deciding it's a blue. So I'm going to use my blue brush. I thought I was going to leave some white, but actually that is just too stark against the other colours. So I've just brushed a little bit of that Pretty Peacock over it, so it's pale, but it's not quite as stark as it was, which I think is better. When you emboss a piece of card, some of the fibres in the card break, so you will find that the card takes up the ink differently in different places, and that is quite random, it seems to me. You can spritz the card before you use a 3D embossing folder like this one, but for this I didn't, because I actually like the ink being taken up in an unpredictable way. I think it just makes it all a bit more interesting. I think we are probably about there. So I've got the whole of this inked. In some places I can see the crumb cake still. I'll try and get that really under there. There we are. So here you can see the crumb cake background. In elsewheres it's just dulled down the colours a little bit because they're laid over the top of it. The colours blend into each other. You would be hard pressed for most of those areas to decide which colour is the one that you're seeing. But I have got some pure colour, so I've got some Asia Afternoon clearly there, some Old Olive there, and so on. So some are blended and some are not blended. And I've got a lot of variation. So that's what you're looking to achieve. Let's just get the worst of the ink off these brushes, just so that they don't cover everything else on my desk with ink. So I'm just going to blast this a little bit with my heat tool just to get the worst of the moisture off it. It is quite damp where I've put a lot of ink in there, so apologies for the noise. I'll just let that heat up for a minute and then I'll just give it a quick dry. Now obviously a heat tool does get very hot. Please mind your fingers. You can use a wooden peg to hold your card to keep your hand further away from it. Be very cautious. Never point it at your face or your hands. So that's my public service health and safety announcement. So that is now pretty much dry. Just to make absolutely sure that there's no wet ink on here that my embossing powder is going to stick to, I'm just going to gently go all over with my embossing buddy. No, there's no powder on that, so that's fine. Okay, so we've got an inked embossing folder that we put the card through and put down a base layer of colour. We've now used blending brushes, or you might use a sponge, to blend on 4 other colours. So our whole piece of card is now inked in a very kind of random way. So now what I'm going to do is add the embossing powder. So I've got a Versamark ink pad here. This is a clear ink pad. This is also a class casualty that got yellow on it, but it doesn't seem to be transferring, so I can live with that. And what I'm going to do is, instead of stamping with Versamark, which is what we tend to do, I'm going to just drag this over there in patches, and I want it to hit some of the raised areas. It will inevitably go in some of the debossed areas as well, and that's fine, but I want it random. So here goes. So I'm just going very lightly and gently with this. I can always come back afterwards. So let's call that it. You saw that I just kind of stroked it over there. I'm trying hard not to get it on everything. I only want some embossing powder on there. So now I'm going to tip on my copper embossing powder. And you probably can't see very clearly where it is. In fact, I've just seen a bit I've missed. I can see the ink, but there's no embossing powder on it. So let's just come back with some there. There we are. And now I'm going to heat this, and I suppose I should be taking my own advice really, shouldn't I, and holding it in a peg. So it will be noisy again, for which my apologies. Okay, I don't know how well you could see that embossing powder melting. I love that moment where it suddenly melts. It's probably not the easiest thing to show you on here, but I have got a completely uneven distribution of embossing powder across there. Now I actually want a bit more copper, I think, so I'm going to drag the ink pad across a couple of areas again, and with a little bit more pressure than I did before, and we'll see how that works. So you can keep coming back, putting on more Versamark ink and more embossing powder until you are happy with the result. It's a good idea to try not to overheat the powder that's already on there, but as long as you work fairly quickly to melt any subsequent lots of powder, you should find that you're okay. If you really overheat embossing powder, it goes dull and kind of sinks into the card, which is not very exciting. So here goes again. Right, so this is getting to be much more the kind of look I want, and that little bit of extra pressure has meant that I have got some ink down in the dips there, and it's still looking quite random, so I'm going to have one more go with the ink because it's still like a bit more embossing powder on there. Once I've done that, I'm also going to do the edges, because I like the edge of my piece when I'm doing this to have embossing powder all around the edges. So here we go. Oop, it's still a little bit sticky. So there we are. I'm hoping that's showing up on the camera. I don't think it's looking as lovely on screen as it actually does in real life. Alright, so the final touch then, I'm going to edge this with embossing powder. So I just scrape the edge of the ink pad quite firmly across the edge of the card. And I usually find I can do 3 sides and then I do one side on its own, and that just keeps me with something to hold that isn't covered in embossing powder. You just have to remember which ones you've done. Okay, so let's heat those up. You might have noticed that I'm not waving the heat tool around like a hairdryer, which is very tempting to do. You actually get much better results by moving it slowly and steadily across the card, and you just move on to the next area once the one you're working on has melted, rather than waving it around. You've got much more control if you don't wave it. All right, last side. Right, so that is all the heat embossing. So I've got a very uneven embossed edge to it, which is just what I wanted. This is all about approximation and not being exact. Okay, I'm going to have a quick dust down because I've got embossing powder everywhere. Despite having been so careful. And that really is my piece finished. Now I could keep going on with this, I could keep adding more embossing powder if I wanted, but I'm happy with that result. So what I'm going to do is to make it into something, because it's all very well having this exciting textured background, but what are you going to do with it? Alright, so I've got some pieces and parts here. So I've cut card in the same colours that I've inked with. So I've got a pretty peacock card base, and this measures 5.5 inches square. So it's 5.5 inches by 11 inches. And then this piece is Lost Lagoon. Love those two colours together. And this is 5.25 inches square. I've got some Asia Afternoon, which is 5 inches square. And a piece of Pretty Peacock, which is 4.5 inches square. I'm going to use some extra glue on this embossed piece because there's much less contact between the two layers of card, because some of those areas are debossed. So I want to be sure that the glue will grab. I'm just going to drink some tea while I hold that down for a moment. I can feel my throat getting dry. Okay. So I don't know which way around I shall want this. Not like that. Yeah, I think maybe like that. Okay. left my card layers plain. I could have embossed them and so on, but I wanted the focus to be on this piece in the middle. And then I've cut some squares using the Stylish Shapes dies. I cut one in Lost Lagoon, but I think I'm probably going to use this one in Pretty Peacock. And then I've cut a circle I'm going to stamp. There we go. I think that's going to work for me. So I'm using stamps from Biggest Wish, which is a great set. And I'm making a thank you card. That probably won't surprise you, because I make a lot of thank you cards. So on this you've got words in block capitals and then in a script font as well. So I've got thanks in both of those, and I'm going to pick A's Your Afternoon, I think, for the block letters, and it will just fit on this circle. I did try it earlier. I've got it on a mat because this is a photopolymer stamp and it's a solid stamp, so you do need that extra squidge. I'm hoping that's just slightly down from the centre. Yes. And then I'm going to stamp the script thanks in Pretty Peacock. There we are. I like this with the square matting layer echoing the square of the card, and then the circle echoing the square dots on here. No, I will stick it flat. I was wondering whether to put it up on dimensionals, but I'm going to go with flat. And again, a bit more glue than usual because I'm sticking this to a very lumpy, bumpy area. And then for the inside, I've got a lot of layers on the front, and this one with the embossing powder and ink is quite heavy. So I've got some extra layers for inside, or an extra layer for inside. I usually only put one layer inside, but I've got two this time. I'm not going to stamp anything on the inside. I'm leaving space to write my thank you message. So my layer is Lost Lagoon, and then obviously the white on top. There we are. That's my finished project. I love that. I just think this is so interesting. So let me show you another one that is completely different. This is a completed project. So here we are, this is in pinks. So this is kind of a fantasy metal, I suppose. Lift it up a little bit closer and I'll explain what I did. So I used Bubble Bath, which is our new pale pink, on the embossing folder, and this is another one of the embossing folders from that basics pack, which you can see in the online extras, or I can easily order it for you as well. So that's a triple pack of 3D embossing folders. So I used Bubble Bath on that, which is the pale pink you can see in the background, sort of here and here. And then I brushed on ink over the top in Berry Burst, Melon Mambo, and Moody Mauve. Moody Mauve is a new one, and Berry Burst is new to the permanent collection. Again, it was an in colour a while ago. And then I used silver embossing powder, and you can see where it's picked up this kind of star and flower design, which is really pretty, I think. Again, I've edged it in embossing powder. And then my card layers, this one is Berry Burst, and I stamped on it the distressed typeface image from Quiet Meadow. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but there is some kind of, I call it visual texture on there. And then there's some silver foil, and then an old olive card base. These are cut with the Stylish Shapes dies again. So I cut one from silver foil and I cut one from white card, and I just brushed some pink ink over it and stamped it. And then I've used the pansy dies to die cut a pansy and a pansy bud and put those together, cut them from different colours of card, the same colours that I've used in the inking. And there's some of the metallic ribbon. So this is actually Parakeet Party metallic ribbon, but it's a kind of a coordinates with Parakeet Party rather than being the true colour, which makes it really versatile. So I think it's great with the old olive here. So there is another version of the same technique. It couldn't be more different really, could they? I hope you've enjoyed seeing that. I hope you'll give it a go. Send me some photos if you do, or put them add them in the comments. I love to see it when people craft along and do something with what I've shown you. So let me just move the camera back up and say goodbye to you. Cover you over just a bit. It's hopefully done it. Yes, it has. I'm a little bit scary close. There we go. So I don't know what you're doing for the weekend, but I hope you have a really good time whatever you're doing. If you're in the UK, enjoy the bank holiday. We've got a 3-day weekend this weekend. In fact, May seems to be nothing but 3-day weekends, which is great. We always have 2 extra days, but we've got a 3rd bank holiday for the coronation of King Charles, so that will be great. Have a good weekend, and I hope I'll see you twice next week. I'll be here on Tuesday at 2 o'clock and Friday at 2 o'clock, so don't miss me for the catalogue launch on Tuesday. And I'll see you again soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Oops. How long does it take me to say bye-bye and find the switch? There's the switch. I'm going to say goodbye now.